Good evening and welcome to the Newshour Agenda. I'm Madhavdas G. Viewers, it's day 19 of the war and the Middle East remains on the brink. Tonight, the conflict is taking a more dangerous turn. Qatar has confirmed that Israel targeted the world's largest gas field, South Pars, in the Persian Gulf. In a statement, Qatar's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs has called for de-escalation across the region and urged Iran and the United States to return to the negotiating table. He's also described the strike as dangerous and irresponsible, quote unquote. Now, the fire at the South Pars gas field has drawn global attention because it's a critical pillar of global gas supply. It is part of the larger North Dome South Pars reservoir, the biggest known gas reserve on the planet. Let's now understand why the gas field matters. And let's quickly explain to you the significance of it. It's not just the world's largest gas field, it also holds 19% of global recoverable gas reserves. It also happens to be the energy backbone of Iran and its domestic gas. Supplies a major share there. It's also shared between Iran and Qatar, not just restricted to one, but both the countries. It's also the economic lifeline because it drives power, industry, petrochemicals, and revenue as well. It also has a global impact as far as energy is concerned because any disruption here means oil and gas prices spike globally speaking, and targeting it is going to lead to an escalation which has global consequences therefore. Let's also tell you meanwhile about what Iran has threatened to do. It has threatened to attack oil and gas facilities in the Gulf region in retaliation for the Israeli strike on South Pars gas field as a follow-up. In a statement, Iranian authorities claim that 5 facilities in Saudi Arabia, UAE and Qatar will be targeted in the coming hours. And there's breaking news coming in. As per a senior Iraqi official, Iranian gas flows to Iraq have halted following the attack on Iran's South Pars gas field. Let's go across to Mayank for more on this. Mayank, this is a huge escalation because energy security is important not just for the Middle East, but because of its implications globally speaking, including for India. With this kind of an escalation coming in, what are we to expect? Because clearly, Iran is not going to take this lying low. They have in the past attacked certain energy infrastructure, but with one of this scale, certainly the stakes have gone up drastically. Mayank.
It's a major part of security of any country, and energy being one of the foremost part of the national security. And having said that, Iran has, right from the beginning, has ensured that whatever bases or whatever infrastructure which is either directly or indirectly strengthening the other side, they will make a contact to it. They will try to destroy that area. And in this case, again, if Iran is being hurt, they will definitely ensure that they retaliate in such a way that it troubles the other side, and they either stop it or the threshold is changed. So it is not sending a good signal, because energy is something which hurts everyone, and which includes India also. And we have seen in last few days, rather in last 2 weeks, that problem has embroiled every nation, whether it's term of import for the other countries, which is like India, Japan, South Korea, China, or it is matter of export for the countries
very quickly,
like...
You're actually, of course, in a place that's been struck. You were in a bunker a short while ago. Just in 30 seconds, explain to our viewers what you actually went through, what you saw. Very quickly.
So it as soon as the third you can hear, the tremors you can hear, it makes you anxious. There's no doubt about it. And the place wherein we are standing, it is the place wherein 2 lives were lost. And right now it's raining, it's trickling here. So one can understand either the nature has also, I mean, sort of a pain can be heard in the form of these rains by the nature here. And the house which is at the 4th floor, you can understand the balcony has peeled out, and we are standing at a place which was cleaned completely in the morning.
And take care of yourself. I hope you and Sachin are safe, and certainly we need to be very careful while reporting in such locations. Mayank, stay with us because there's some more breaking news coming in. US Intelligence Chief Tulsi Gabbard has now warned of the nuclear capability of Pakistan and China. Tulsi Gabbard says Pakistan's long missile ballistic range development potentially could include with a range capable of hitting the homeland directly. Very important development there coming in from the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, warning to Trump, including Pakistan amongst the countries such as China, Russia, which could have potential new threats. And that's a very, very big development coming in. Let's listen in.
The intelligence community assesses that Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and Pakistan have been researching and developing an array of novel, advanced, or traditional missile delivery systems with nuclear and conventional payloads that put our homeland within range. The IC assesses that threats to the homeland will expand collectively to more than 16,000 missiles by 2035, from the current assessed figure of more than 3,000 missiles. Pakistan's long-range ballistic missile development potentially could include ICBMs with the range capable of striking the homeland.
All right, big development they're coming in, because that's Tulsi Gabbard herself, the Director of National Intelligence, who's talking about the potential nuclear threat. Then what about the threat that emanates from all of these other countries, including Pakistan? What's going to be the action from the side of the United States? Will the same yardstick that was used in the case of Iran once again apply here? Very big question. Let's quickly open this up for debate.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
We'll take this across to our guest. Joining us with us is Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow of Observer Research Foundation. We have Surya Jayanti, former US diplomat and Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Dr. Doron Avital, ex-commander of Israel's elite special forces, that's the Sayeret Matkal, and former member of the Knesset and Foreign and Security Committee. Andrew K.P. Leung, international and independent China strategist, is with us. Major Nadeem, Pakistan defense analyst, also joins us on the show. But let me start with you first. Doron Avital, the targeting of the South Pars field is being seen as a massive escalation, because this is a field that is connected to Iran as well as Qatar. And these are countries which are, Qatar particularly, other Middle Eastern countries, are not exactly seen as enemies of Israel, because you have United States bases in them. And yet they are calling this extremely unfortunate and irresponsible, because it's going to directly impact on energy supplies globally speaking, leave alone Iran.
No question about that, that this is a step in the direction of escalation, but it has to be clear that it's not a step that Israel conducted on its own. This is not the kind of step in this theater of war that Israel can decide and act upon itself. This is a decision in full coordination with the American in the context of the blockade of the Hormuz Strait. So this is the move that tries to signal to the Iranian to lose their grip on this blocking the Strait of Hormuz. This is a move made the US and the Israelis together, but it's clearly a step that in the direction of escalation. There's no question about that.
Andrew K.P. Leung, it is of course an escalation, but the big question is, how are we going to see the war? Because when we thought that things were perhaps settling down, of course, it is a fact that big leaders, figures are being targeted in Iran. But this is a step in actually which could lead to a huge amount of chaos. Just look at those pictures. Just look at the kind of plumes. I'm reminded of what happened in Tehran a few days ago. It's a similar sort of picture that we're seeing from the Pars gas field there. Please unmute yourself and speak. All right, there's a problem with your audio there. We'll just try and fix that problem, technically speaking. But Sushant Sareen, this is a massive escalation any which way you look at it, because, you know, it's going to directly impact countries like India, which depend hugely on gas that comes in from the Middle East, and Qatar is one of the biggest suppliers of this natural gas.
Madhav, you know, the gas shortages are going to hit us over the next couple of weeks. That's inevitable. Even if this strike had not taken place, I think gas supplies are going to get disrupted. But with this particular strike, and if in retaliation to this strike, the Iranians were to strike other oil and gas fields in the other Arab countries, then, you know, there will be serious shortage of oil also. Even as we speak, remember one thing, there are no new ships going into the Persian Gulf to load up on oil and gas. All that the Strait of Hormuz being opened up is, you know, people are talking about is the ships which are already in the Persian Gulf coming out, not any new ships going in. So those shortages will be looming large over everybody. But as far as escalation is concerned, I think we should stop using the word escalation, because virtually on a daily basis, this war is being ramped up. From either side, there is this thing of how do you pressure the other side to give in or back down, and neither side is either willing to give in or back down. So I think we are going to remain in this escalation phase for the foreseeable future. I don't see any quick end to this. Anybody who thinks that President Trump will one day, suddenly lose interest in this war, get bored of it, and walk away, probably is hoping for something which is not achievable. I don't think the Israelis are in a mood to let go right now, nor for that matter is Iran. And for at least Israel and Iran, for both countries, it's almost like an existential struggle for the two of them.
Absolutely.
So which one of them is going to give way first? Because there'll be serious repercussions for whichever one is seen to be playing a weaker hand than the other one. So yeah, it's. I think we are heading for even greater crisis as we go forward.
Yeah, and Surya Jayanti, that's, I think, an important question that you need to look at and answer, because, at the end of the day, we're not just talking about Iran, Israel and US. It's having very, very real consequences for the economies of countries. The entire Middle East is staring at a potentially, disastrous few months or years ahead. I mean, who knows the kind of efforts it will take to rebuild the Middle East given this kind of context. And if you're looking at the energy infrastructure being demolished in this particular manner, it's going to have a hugely disruptive kind of impact. And the big question is, does the US know what it's doing? And at what cost is it going to come to the rest of the world?
The evidence out of Washington is that while the United States may well have known what it was doing in the sense of choosing very assiduously to attack Iran alongside Israel, it clearly did not plan adequately. It underestimated Iran's ability to defend itself and to inflict economic harm on the entire world, not just the region. At this point, what is additionally clear is that the White House does not have an end game. It does not have anything that would resemble a cognizable goal other than, I think, what could be described as make Iran sorry. There have been 15, 20 different justifications for the war thrown out, and they change seemingly hourly depending on the news. So I disagree slightly with what was said earlier about Trump probably not losing interest. I think that underestimates the degree to which the United States as a population is very against this war, and the degree to which it is beginning to make Trump himself and his administration look poorly prepared and not very good at prosecuting the war. And I think we all know that President Trump is quite susceptible to popular opinion. And so I think there is still considerable room for the United States to decide it doesn't want to continue.
All right, there's big condemnation coming in from various countries. In fact, Russia, the UAE are all coming out to condemn this. Let's quickly pull up those social media posts. This is the post of UAE. If we can quickly get it up on our screen. I'm going to request my panel to take it up from the 250 there. Let's quickly get it up on the screen and play it out because this is the comment coming in from the United Arab Emirates. They're saying that the UAE confirms that targeting of the energy facility linked to the Pars field poses a threat to global energy security. Let's quickly zoom into that particular social media post and show it for our viewers. This is very, very important because this is coming in from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the United Arab Emirates. This is one social media post which is very, very important. There's another one and a statement coming in from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Let's quickly get that up on the screen as well, where Zakharova has said that Russia strongly condemns the absolutely unacceptable missile strike on the inner perimeter of the Bushehr NPP. The US and Israel must abandon reckless attacks on Iran's nuclear infrastructure. We expect a clear and unequivocal condemnation coming in from the IAEA. Let me bring in Andrew KP Leong. Andrew KP Leong, we're of course discussing the huge development that has taken place a short while earlier, where it's not just Qatar, which has a stake in that particular South Pars field, but also UAE, which is saying this is going to have a massive impact on global energy flows.
Well, that's exactly Iran's strategy for regime survival, because Iran is totally devastated by all this indiscriminate bombing all over the place, and this economy is in tatters. Is the leadership, the Khomeini has been decapitated, and then the only strategy for Iran's survival is to weaponize all the damage around the world, and firstly targeting American assets in the region, but also blocking the Strait of Hormuz, so as to cause maximum disruption around the world, so as to put pressure on the United States and Israel to desist. Because this is a matter of survival for the Iranian regime. And as far as China is concerned, there is a lot of rhetoric about China's being locked out of the port of Hormuz. Well, the reality is far from this, because don't forget that Iran has been an ally of China, and then China's ships, and in fact, you just reported even Indian ships were allowed to pass through the port of Hormuz. And in addition, don't forget there is a direct rail line between Iran and China, which was completed and became operational last year. And of course, the reliance on oil from Iran alone accounts for something like 13 to 14% of China's total energy imports. And of course, there are other parts of the import from other Arab countries. But as I said, I mean, the oil, China-bound oil...
But Andrew KP Leung, what is China doing to end the war then? We've hardly seen any action on China's part.
Say that again?
What is China's effort to try and end the war or perhaps reduce the impact of this war?
Naturally, the last thing China wants is a disruptive Middle East. Don't forget that is goes into the...
No, it's not about what you want. Neither does India want that. Nobody else wants that. What is China doing with its immense resources at its disposal, being a self-declared superpower? What is it doing to end the war?
Well, of course, China wants to broker the peace. But of course, like the peace, if you look around all the wars in the world, peace did not happen because of rhetoric. Peace happens because of the dynamics, the power dynamics, to such an extent. For example, the United States is subject to time constraints with the looming midterm elections. As pointed out, the war is not authorized by the American Congress. There is a lot of backlash of the American people against this war.
That's the internal dynamics of the United States. Very respectfully, Andrew KP Leung, that's not an answer to what China is doing or its silence at the moment. But I want to bring in Sushant Sareen on that. Sushant Sareen, China is just waiting in the wings. It hasn't really done much. It's said a lot in terms of wanting to ensure that there is peace. But do you think a lot more can be done to ensure that the situation is stabilized, internationally speaking?
No, but Madhav, what exactly could the Chinese do? Let's be realistic about what is practical for them. Maybe they can help Iran a little bit. Maybe they are doing it. But beyond that, what role can they play to actually stop the war? Are they going to actually move their naval assets and their armed forces into the region to ask the Americans and the Israelis to push off from that? I don't think they're going to be interested in fighting a war in this theater. The Chinese are probably preparing for an eventual conflict or a challenge that comes to them in their backyard, which is the Indo-Pacific rather than the western side of the Indo-Pacific. They are more interested in the East Asian side of things, South China Sea, that area, right? If supposing a similar action was to take place out there, I would imagine the Chinese reaction would be vastly different from what it is when it involves Iran. Now, sure, China has very good relations with not only the Arab countries, but also with Iran. But there are limitations to what China can do. And maybe they're taking some diplomatic tack. But beyond that, I think their hands are probably as tied as our hands or many of the other countries, their hands. None of us want this conflict to happen. None of us want to see this conflict grow and persist for any length of time, because this is going to cause global pain.
Absolutely. And in fact, there's some breaking news coming in. Sorry, I'm interrupting you there because this is a quick update coming in and it's a big one. Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei has said, and this is being reported by the state media in Iran, that those responsible for the killing of Ali Larijani, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, would soon pay the price. Every blood has a price that his killers will soon have to pay. That's the message coming in. Doron, Avital, your response to that, because here you have Mojtaba Khamenei, who is neither injured, at least doesn't seem to be the kind of statement coming in, has said that there will be a price to pay for the killing of Larijani. What that will be, we don't know. But that's a huge escalation and a statement coming there of intent from the side of Iran.
Sure, the killing of Rajani is part of this major escalation, and it's only expected they will try to retaliate in whatever fashion they can. The question is what capacities they have. I think there's a huge gap between the rhetoric of the Iranian regime and their capacities in terms of technology, operation. So I'm not sure what do they have right now in their capacity to do. Now they're trying just to create this havoc in order to end the war in one fashion or another. They know what we all know, that if Trump decides to end the war, Israel would have to comply. It's not like Israel can wage the war on its own. And then the account can be open. But I think there's a huge gap between what Iran has in its disposal and what it can deliver. And what it can deliver now is just, I would say, low-cost guerrilla warfare, tech guerrilla warfare, and this is what they're trying to do all over the region.
Okay, let me bring in now Major Nadeem, because Major Nadeem, an important aspect of this entire discourse is how the US is looking at other countries, including China and Pakistan. And Pakistan has also been dubbed amongst the countries that's capable of a nuclear strike with its ballistic missiles to the homeland. So this is a country that, your country claims to have close ties with. But Tulsi Gabbard's statement, the Director of National Intelligence's statement, is a very clear sign that they also view Pakistan as a threat. So will the yardstick that applies to Iran now be applied to Pakistan is the question.
You see, as far as Tulsi is listing Pakistan with Russia and China, it has no significance, number one. Number one, Pakistan has the right to at least develop or perish the geographical immunity of India. At least we should have the range of missiles that can reach every nook and corner of the India. India is our enemy. So we have got the right to develop such weapons. Moreover, Pakistan has no intention to develop ICBMs, right? For this, I think China and Russia both are as our neighbors. They have the capability. They are enough for USA. But Pakistan definitely
so Tulsi
has
Gabbard
the
is wrong,
intention
according to you.
to get it.
According to you, Tulsi Gabbard is wrong.
Tulsi Gabbard is a politician. She's a Republican. You know Tulsi Gabbard.
She's also the Director of National Intelligence. She's just not just another Republican.
She said that
She's the Director of National
but
Intelligence.
she's a politician. She's the Republican.
No, of course she is, but she holds a post also.
Okay, she's the Director of National Intelligence, but she's not the Director of...
No, but
yes,
Mr. Munir has lunch with President Trump, and then his Director of National Intelligence says this.
China.
Are you saying she's lying?
Yes, she is showing her, you may say, that this is what she thinks, that Pakistan, Russia, and China, China and Russia, they are already having ICBMs, right?
Well, Major Nadeem, I'm very glad you mentioned that you only have weapons that can target India. And the point is that you've never been successful for over 75 years in doing anything to India. Look at the fact that you have two generals sitting next to her while she's actually saying that. But Surya Jayanti, I want you to come in on this. What do you make of this? Because Pakistan being clubbed in the same group of nations as Russia, China, etc., which have strike capabilities to the homeland. Now, that's a very, very serious statement for the Director of National Intelligence to be making. However, our Pakistan panelist feels that she's overstating their own capacities. I don't know who to believe here.
I do not have enough of the classified military intelligence to weigh in on the substance. But what I can tell you is that it is very easy to overstate Tulsi Gabbard's power in Washington. She is not somebody the White House takes much notice of, and so whether or not what she is saying is true, she is absolutely not articulating the United States' position on Pakistan. If there is a change in U.S. policy on Pakistan, it will not be coming from Tulsi Gabbard.
Okay, but let me bring in Andrew K.P. Leung. Andrew K.P. Leung, the bigger question is still this. Before going into the attack on Iran, the big problem that the United States had was the nuclear capability of Iran. Now, if you're going to look at the intercontinental ballistic missiles, if you're going to look at that club of countries which has those missiles, which includes Russia, which includes China, which includes Pakistan, what are we looking at, and why is that being articulated at this time when there's a conflict a serious conflict at that going on, where you have US and Israel targeting Iran on the same issue?
Well, I agree with the assessment that this statement from this lady in the United States does not is not on all fours with the highest leadership in the United States as far as Pakistan is concerned. Don't forget that not so long ago, a top Pakistan general was invited to visit the White House. I don't think that this stance towards Pakistan has changed substantially. But if you look at the nuclear stockpile in the country, both India and Pakistan's stockpile is nothing in comparison with those of the United States and Russia. Well, let's look at that. I mean, I'm looking at those data right now in terms of nuclear warheads. Russia has 4,300, the United States 3,700, China's got 600, and France at 2,290, the UK 225, India 180, and Pakistan 170. Now, 170 compared with the United States 3,700 warheads, and the warheads in the United States are maybe much more powerful than those posed by Pakistan. So I think this rhetoric that Pakistan's nuclear stockpile poses a threat to the United States is really nonsense.
Well, they are saying that poses the biggest nuclear threat, but that's the assessment of the United States, not the assessment of the other countries. Before I go across to other panelists, there's a quick update coming in from Saudi Arabia, where several loud bangs have been heard in capital Riyadh. There are residents who've received phone alerts warning of a hostile aerial threat for the first time. This is, of course, happening in Riyadh even as we speak. There's more updates coming in. Sweden's Foreign Minister Maria Mama Stenegard has said that Iran has executed a Swedish citizen after Iranian officials announced the first execution of a man convicted of spying since the start of the US-Israel war in the country. Condemning the execution, Sweden's Foreign Minister said, and I quote, "It's with dismay that I've received information of a Swedish citizen being executed in Iran earlier today." All right, a lot of developments coming in there. Sushant Sareen, your response, though, to this larger question about how US perceives the nuclear threat from these countries.
So, Madhav, a couple of things. One, Tulsi Gabbard, what she was saying, whether she's irrelevant, relevant, I don't even see how that is important. Because she is giving an assessment which has been made by the American intelligence community, and she is airing that assessment before the US Congress. So it's a testimony before the US Congress, and in the assessment of the American intelligence community, they perceive a potential threat from Pakistan and 4 other countries, Russia, China, North Korea, very well known, but also from Iran and Pakistan. Now, both Iran and Pakistan still do not have the reach to reach the American mainland. But if they have nuclear weapons, Iran obviously doesn't have as of now. But if they have that capability, they can hit American targets in the region or nearabouts. Now, I don't understand the logic of Mr. Leung when he says Pakistan has 170, the Americans have, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 warheads. Pakistan doesn't pose a threat. I would imagine if Al-Qaeda had a single warhead or a single nuclear bomb, it would pose a threat to America and the Western world and anybody who Al-Qaeda considers to be their enemy. So even a single nuclear bomb is one too many. So Pakistan, a nation of crazies, people in responsible positions who keep threatening to use the nuclear bomb against one or the other, including against Israel, India, of course, but they keep talking about how they will plan to nuke Israel one day, how if the Americans were ever to use their local lingo, cast an evil eye on Pakistan, that the Americans will find out what the Pakistanis can do to them. They use this rhetoric all the time. Now, really, so
the chickens are coming home to roost. Major Nadeem, respond to Sushant Sareen. All that rhetoric that is used on ground in Pakistan, actually when it comes to the real politics, when it comes to the diplomatic talk, none of that really matters because you're doing exactly the opposite of what is preached there in Pakistan.
Pakistan is not at all a threat to any group. Pakistan is a peaceful nation. We have got only one enemy, that is India. And we have to respond to India. If India makes the nuclear bomb, then we had to make the
Why did you kill 400 people in Kabul? That's the sign of a peaceful country.
100 people.
You bombed a rehabilitation center. Is that what a peaceful country does?
No, it was not. It was surrounded by.
Don't lie so blatantly, please.
It was
there is a limit. There is a limit, my dear sir, to which you can lie. The whole world has seen how Pakistan has bombed across the border of Afghanistan, across the Durand line, and now you've taken it to Kabul. How on earth does that make you a peaceful country?
Yes.
Just to divert attention from this war, just because you don't want to support Saudi Arabia, you want to break the contract of common defense, you start bombing Afghanistan. You're a peaceful country. Come on.
No. We are Afghan people, as far as Afghan people are concerned, they are our brothers. Okay? We have got one problem, and that is the sole issue is, please, we are talking to Taliban regime, that is the terror regime, please don't let your soil be used against Pakistan.
Well,
this is our
talking with airstrikes and guns is no way of talking. That's all I can say, sir. You claim that you're a peaceful nation and you are at war with all your neighbors. The only neighbor you're not at war at the moment with is Iran. And even though your sentiment on ground may be quite different, what you're doing is quite, the whole world is watching how Pakistan is exposed at the moment. Anyway, we're totally out of time. Sushant Sareen, Surya Jayanti, Dr. Doro Navital, Andrew K. P. Leong, Major Nadeem, thanks so much for joining us this evening.